My name is Ashley. I'm 34 years old, and my life has always smelled like sizzling garlic sweet soy glaze and the sound of a hot wok. While other kids played with Barbies or read fairy tales, I played with knives, cast iron pans, and laminated menus. I grew up in the back kitchen of my family's restaurant in Portland, Oregon, where my grandfather Walter Brennan opened Brennan's Hearth in 1980 and turned a crumbling diner into a local gem of Asian American fusion. I was raised in that kitchen. At 6, I stood on a stool flipping scallion pancakes with Grandpa, who called me his little sous chef. He taught me that every dish had a soul if the cook poured their heart into it. I mastered teriyaki glaze before multiplication tables, and by high school I was handling vegetable prep on weekends like a real line cook. After graduation, I enrolled at the Lorden Blue Culinary Institute in San Francisco, then earned a marketing degree at the University of Oregon. I didn't just want to cook, I wanted to build a real brand from our family's legacy. In 2013, I came back to Brennan's Hearth armed with kitchen skills and a modern vision. My parents, Mike and Ellen, were still running the place, and they seemed genuinely happy I returned. I remember the feeling of stepping into the head chef role for the first time, taking over the station Grandpa once ruled. I introduced my own dish, tangerine glazed lobster, a recipe that would later put us on the Northwest food map and land us a $1 million contract with Coastal Luxe Resorts. I wasn't just cooking, I was building, turning a kitchen into a brand, turning food into legacy. When I officially returned to Brennan's Hearth in 2013, the restaurant was doing fine, but I knew it could be so much more. I didn't want it to just be a cozy neighborhood favorite in Portland. I wanted it to be a culinary destination, a place people would drive hours to visit just to taste my tangerine glazed lobster. I started small. I refreshed the menu, introducing dishes with a modern twist while staying true to our Asian American roots. I filmed short behind-the-scenes clips in the kitchen and posted them online. At first, we had a few dozen views. Then a clip of our charred miso salmon bowl went viral. Our follower count exploded, thousands, then tens of thousands. I remember the day we were featured in Portland Eats magazine with the headline, "Behind the Flavor is a Granddaughter and a Legacy." I didn't cry, but my hands trembled when I saw Dad Mike cut out the article and tape it to the kitchen fridge. I poured everything into the restaurant. 12 to 14-hour days were normal, mornings testing new dishes, afternoons negotiating with suppliers, evenings fighting the dinner rush. I wasn't just cooking, I was managing marketing, problem-solving, and sourcing fresh produce from farms as far as Eugene. Then, in my 10th year back, something incredible happened. A representative from Coastal Luxe Resorts, a premium hotel chain along the West Coast, booked a table at Brennan's Hearth. They dined with us 3 times in 1 week, each time ordering the tangerine glazed lobster. A few days later, I got a call from their Seattle office. "Ashley, we'd love to feature your dish across our Washington, Oregon, and Northern California locations." I stared at the screen stunned. The contract was worth $1 million, but more than that, it was validation. No one handed me this. I cooked, negotiated, sweated, and built. This wasn't family luck. This was me. Every January, like clockwork, we held a family meeting in the private dining room at Brennan's Hearth, the one lined with old black and white photos of my grandfather Walter grinning beside a simmering stock pot. This year was no different, but the air felt off. My dad Mike adjusted his tie, his silent signal that something big was coming. My mom Ellen stirred her coffee, eyes fixed anywhere but at me. My younger sister Kayla sat in the corner scrolling on her phone, barely present. 3 years younger than me, she'd interned at a few tech startups, had never touched a hot stove, and was famously bad at microwaving popcorn without burning it. I leaned forward expecting to hear about the new location I'd pitched in Bend, or maybe a budget expansion for our marketing team. But no, Dad cleared his throat. "Your mom and I have made a decision. It's time for Brennan's Hearth to have an official CEO, and we believe..." Kayla is ready to lead. I thought I misheard. Kayla looked up smirking like she'd just won a game. I stared at Dad waiting for the punchline, but he nodded solemn and certain. Dad, I don't understand, I said, my voice tight. I've managed the kitchen, the menu, the partnerships for 12 years. I secured the Coastal Luxe deal. I have the culinary degree, the marketing degree. Kayla has an MBA, Dad cut in firmly. You're great in the kitchen, Ashley, but leadership requires broader vision. I didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Vision, I doubled our revenue, got us into magazines, and kept customers coming for over a decade. Kayla forgot to order half the ingredients for our anniversary dinner last year. Kayla shrugged. Relax, sis. You're good at cooking. I'll turn this place into a chain. We don't need your artsy lobster dishes clogging the kitchen. I laughed, but it was the kind of laugh that tastes like iron. The kind that burns behind your eyes. And what stung the most, my mother just stirred her coffee and murmured, "It's what's best for the business," without ever meeting my gaze. In that moment, it hit me I wasn't the future of this legacy. To them, I was just the cook. And the new leader had never even known the sting of oil on her skin. I used to think I was the heir to Brennan's hearth. But after the day they chose Kayla as CEO, everything shifted. Outwardly, I was still the head chef. But inside, I knew I'd been demoted not on paper, but in tone and glances in how they spoke around me. Kayla wasted no time. She walked into the restaurant like she'd owned it her whole life, speaking in team meetings with the confidence of someone who just completed an online business course. In her first week, she reviewed my menu like a grocery list, crossing out the miso cod as too pricey, scribbling, too complex next to the yuzu scallops that were always waitlisted. I kept quiet. I told myself, give it a few days. Maybe Dad will realize the mistake. But the mistakes kept coming. Kayla barged into the kitchen during peak dinner rush to ask why a salad took more than 3 minutes. She demanded we cancel our premium seafood order and switch to frozen shrimp, cost-effective, she said. I caught Ryan, our floor manager, throwing me a look. It said everything were heading for a cliff. I was no longer invited to supplier calls. Dad started introducing me to vendors as Ashley handles the kitchen like I was some line cook. During a wine vendor meeting, he actually said Kayla's handling brand strategy now. Ashley's in charge of operations. I built this brand. I landed the $1 million deal. But now everything I'd worked for was being filtered through Kayla's spreadsheets, cold clinical cells, from someone who'd never felt the burn of the grill or the heat of a Saturday dinner rush. I kept showing up, kept cooking, kept running the kitchen like a pro. But every day I felt myself shrinking, fading into the background of the fire I had once lit. It all unraveled that Friday during the staff meeting the moment I realized this wasn't my restaurant anymore. It wasn't even my family, not really. We were prepping for a private event, a launch dinner for a local tech company, 50 guests, 5 courses. I'd spent the entire week perfecting the menu, pairing each dish with local craft beers. The team was energized, focused. Everything was ready. Then Kayla walked in. No hello. No glance around the kitchen, just her laptop and a flat announcement, quick update. Starting next week, we're cutting 3 items from the main menu, the tangerine glazed lobster, the miso cod, and the yuzu scallops. The kitchen went silent. Ryan turned to me, his jaw tight with disbelief. I stood. Those are our top sellers. Why would you cut them? Too expensive, too complicated, Kayla replied, cool as ice. Burgers and fried rice are faster. Higher volume, faster margin. I stared. But those dishes bring in our highest profit. Have you even looked at the numbers? Dad raised a hand. Ashley, enough. Kayla's done the analysis. We need to focus on efficiency. I was the one staying late every night running cost analysis, balancing flavor with margin. I landed the $1 million Coastal Luxe contract on the strength of the very dishes she just gutted. I looked around. My team, my people were staring back, waiting for me to push back. Say something. But I didn't. I sat down, silent. And for the first time, I felt powerless, not because I wasn't enough, but because the people who were supposed to have my back had turned away. I always believed that if I worked hard enough long enough, they'd see my worth. But I learned the hard way you can serve thousands of perfect dishes, land $1 million contract, and still be just the chef to some people. 10 days after Kayla became CEO, I walked into our regular staff meeting. We were prepping for Chef's Table, our monthly signature event, where I curated a special tasting menu and paired each course with local wines. The team was buzzing. Everyone knew this was my night. Then Kayla walked in. Uninvited, laptop in hand. We're cutting half the specialty dishes, she announced. They're not scalable. Ashley's creative, sure, but we need to prioritize profit. I stood heart pounding. Those dishes are why we're fully booked. You want to turn Brennan's into a burger joint. Kayla crossed her arms. I'm the CEO. You should focus on cooking. I looked to my dad standing nearby. He didn't speak, just frowned and repeated the same line he'd used before Kayla's in charge. We trust her. Not a word in my defense. Not a nod from Mom. I was done. After the meeting, I walked into the kitchen, removed my apron, and hung it up on the same hook my grandfather used for his very first chef's coat. I stepped into the alley behind the restaurant, leaned against the cold brick wall, and let the city noise wash over me like static. My chest ached, not from defeat, but from clarity. I had poured my heart, sweat, and best years into making Brennan's Hearth a name people trusted. And just like that, I was dismissed, replaced by a PowerPoint and a diploma. That night I met with Holly, my closest friend and owner of Lotus Ember, a popular restaurant across the river. Over greasy diner fries and weak coffee, I told her everything. No filter, no sugar coating. When I finished, she looked at me and asked, if this weren't your family's restaurant, would you stay? I didn't hesitate. No, I'd walk away. Then why accept less just because it's family? That question changed everything. That night I went home exhausted but oddly calm. For the first time in years, I didn't feel the need to prove anything. Not to my parents, not to Kayla, not to anyone. Around midnight, I opened my laptop. Folder by folder, I went through everything: recipe drafts, marketing plans, supplier emails, notes from hundreds of tastings with clients. Each file was a piece of my life. Late nights perfecting sauces, calls to farms in Eugene to ensure produce arrived on time and fresh. And it hit me I wasn't walking away empty-handed. The tangerine glazed lobster recipe mine. The miso cod, I tested that dish 17 times to get the balance just right. My relationships with vendors like Denise, the one who delivered our seafood every week, weren't based on contracts. They were based on trust. And most importantly, the Coastal Lux deal. They didn't sign with Brennan's Hearth. They signed with me. I sat with them at tasting after tasting. I fine-tuned every dish for their hotel menus. That partnership was built on personal credibility, not branding, not title. I started backing up everything to a personal hard drive, not out of spite, but protection. If I left, I wanted to stand tall on the foundation I built myself. I also made a list of suppliers who'd follow me, staff I trusted to join a new venture, loyal customers who'd emailed me personally to thank me for their dining experience. Then I opened my phone and scrolled to Eric Marshall, my contact at Coastal Lux. I didn't call him, just stared at his name. But in that moment, I knew if I left, I wouldn't be alone. I leaned back in my chair, breathing lighter than I had in weeks. I used to think Brennan's was my family, but now I saw clearly what I built was mine. I just had to be brave enough to take it with me. I didn't quit immediately. Part of me wanted to leave on my own terms. The other part, I wanted to see what happened when I stopped holding everything together. I still showed up at the kitchen each day, but I stopped going the extra mile. I let Kayla manage. I stopped writing new menus. I didn't stay late fixing supplier reports or mentoring new hires. I did my job, no more, no less. And then things began to crumble faster than I expected. 3 days in Denise, my longtime seafood vendor called sounding confused. Ashley, your sister asked me to switch to frozen shrimp. Is that right? I thought you only used fresh. I kept my tone steady. It's not right. But she's the CEO now. You decide who you trust. The next day, Kristen, my line cook, pulled me aside after dinner. Kayla told me to rush the cod down to a 5-minute fire time. It came out raw, and the table sent it back. She's tanking the kitchen. I looked at Kristen, and for once I had no answer. I used to be the one they came to for solutions. Now I just stayed quiet. Then came Ryan, our floor manager, leaving me a voicemail after midnight. Things are a mess. She changes her mind 3 times a shift. The staff's confused and frustrated. We need you back. I didn't respond. I'd warned them. They chose not to listen. By day 6, the cracks reached the public. A well-known food blogger dined in and posted the next morning, "Brennan's hearth is losing its soul." The cod I used to rave about was bland. Service was sloppy. Staff seemed lost. Then came the customer texts and emails. Did Ashley leave? This new menu is weird in a bad way. We miss your lobster. I read each message, not sure whether to laugh or cry. The foundation I built was starting to crumble, and I hadn't even lifted a finger. All I did was step back. I was organizing some old files when my phone rang. The caller ID flashed Eric Marshall, senior partner at Coastal Lux Resorts. I had a feeling this call was coming, but when it did, my chest still tightened. I answered. His voice was cool, professional, but I could hear the frustration underneath. Ashley, what's going on at Brennan's hearth? I closed my eyes and sat down. I'm no longer involved in leadership decisions, Eric. Kayla's handling things now. He sighed. Yeah. I figured. She came to our meeting with a slideshow about operational efficiencies and couldn't answer a single question about your menu. She pitched burgers and frozen stir-fry as replacements for your signature dishes. My stomach sank. She did what? She didn't even know the tangerine lobster recipe, he said flatly. That was the centerpiece of our deal. Ashley, this isn't what we signed up for. If your food, your quality, your vision aren't part of it anymore, we're pulling the plug. I swallowed hard. Losing this contract wasn't just about money. It was the loudest statement yet that everything I built was being dismantled. I understand, Eric, I said quietly. I wish I could fix it, but I'm not in a position to. There was a pause. Then his voice softened. I'm calling out of respect. If you land somewhere else, if you start something, I'd love to talk again. The call ended. I sat there staring at the blank wall. No anger, no surprise, just sadness. Because the thing I had poured my soul into was being replaced by something cheaper, faster, emptier. That night my father called. I didn't answer. He left a short, urgent voicemail. Ashley, Pacific Lux is pulling out. Call me. Then another, we just lost $1 million. We need you. I just sat there watching the screen flash, then powered the phone off. The door had slammed shut, not because I closed it, but because they never really opened it for me in the first place. After 10 days of silence, I agreed to meet them, my father and Kayla, at a small cafe in Fremont. A neutral ground, not the restaurant, not the place where I'd been pushed aside. I arrived early and chose a corner table with a full view of the room. I wore a navy blazer over a crisp white shirt, nothing flashy but firm. I wanted them to see who I was now, not Ashley from the kitchen, but a woman who knew her worth. They arrived right on time. My dad looked worn out, tie loose, eyes hollow. Kayla, for once, didn't look polished. Her hair was pulled back hastily, blazer wrinkled. They sat across from me in silence for a beat. Then Dad spoke. Ashley, things are bad. Pacific Lux pulled the contract. Eric won't return our calls. We need your help. I took a sip of espresso, voice calm. I know. Eric called me. He was clear the trust is gone. Kayla flushed. You walked out and left us in a mess. Now you want to waltz back and demand things. I met her eyes. I didn't walk out. I was pushed. But if you want me to fix this, I'm not coming back for free. I'm not going to be a chef taking orders from someone who doesn't understand what I built. Dad nodded slowly. So, what do you want? I'd thought long and hard. This was my line in the sand. Equal leadership not working under Kayla. Equity, a formal stake in the business that reflects my contribution. Public recognition of my role not just in the kitchen but in our brand and reputation. Kayla nearly choked on her coffee. You want to share the CEO title? I smiled. No, I want a title that matches reality. I've been running Brennan's Hearth since before you could pronounce tangerine glazed lobster. Dad exhaled, rubbing his temples. We'll need to speak to a lawyer. I nodded. Good. I already have one. And if nothing changes, I'm not fixing anything. For the first time in my life, I walked away from a meeting with the upper hand. No begging, no bending. And for the first time, I started to think, maybe I wasn't going back at all. I came into that cafe in Fremont with a list of demands. What I didn't expect was walking out with a bigger question, do I even want to go back? In the days that followed, I couldn't stop thinking about it. While cooking in the tiny rental kitchen in Capitol Hill, walking past the farmers' markets where I used to source our produce, I kept asking myself, even with full authority, would I still feel like me at Brennan's Hearth? It was Holly, my friend, my quiet advisor, who finally said it aloud. She looked at me across a coffee shop table and said, "You're setting conditions to fix something you no longer believe in." I said nothing, and she added, "The truth is, Brennan's hasn't been yours for a long time, but you can build something new, something with your name on it, no one else's." That night I reopened a business plan I'd shelved a year ago, a smaller restaurant, modern, seasonal menus, local sourcing, and of course my signature dishes. I called Eric at Coastal Lux. "Eric, I'm not going back to Brennan's, but I'm starting something of my own, still interested." There was a pause. Then he chuckled. "Ashley, if you're cooking, I'm in." 3 days later, I met with Dad and Kayla again. This time they had a draft contract offering shared leadership. I placed my hand gently on the folder and slid it back to them. "Thank you, but I'm not coming back." They both froze. My dad stammered, You don't want the power anymore." I smiled. "No, because now I have freedom, and I'm choosing my own path." I walked out of that cafe and didn't look back. This time I wasn't just leaving Brennan's Hearth. I was stepping out of someone else's shadow. 3 months after that final meeting with Dad and Kayla, I stood in the kitchen of my new restaurant, Ashley's Table, watching the first plates leave the line. The space sat on a quiet corner in Capitol Hill with exposed brick walls, warm lighting, and the scent of sizzling garlic, seared scallops, and familiar tangerine glaze. Everything in this space reflected one thing: me. I wasn't anyone's head chef anymore. I was the founder, the owner, the decision maker. Holly became my first investor. Eric from Coastal Lux not only re-signed our deal but introduced me to 2 new hotel partners. The first contract brought in $500,000, not the old figure, but this time it was all mine. The biggest surprise: how many customers from Brennan's Hearth followed me? They didn't just miss the dishes, they missed the feeling, the care, the chef behind the flavors. Ryan, my former manager, asked to join the team. Kristen, my best line cook, turned down a raise over there to return to my kitchen. Denise, my seafood supplier, texted me, "I can't let you launch without fresh shrimp." Then one quiet Saturday morning, my mother stopped by before we opened. She didn't apologize outright. She just stood in the doorway, took in the space, ran her hand along the counter, and softly said, "I never thought you'd build this. But I'm proud you did." I didn't forgive everything right then, but I invited her to sit. We shared a quiet meal. No judgment. Just food. Just peace. As for Kayla, she was still struggling to keep Brennan's afloat. One day she messaged, "I don't know how you kept it all running. Can you help me?" Not as CEO, just as my sister. And I agreed. Not because she deserved it, but because I no longer carried the need to prove anything. I had taken another path, a path that bore my name.